In conversation with Veronica Trunzo. Veronica Trunzo was born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, and graduated from the University of Toronto with a BA in Literature and History. In 2013, she moved to Asia and spent the next 7 years traveling, teaching English and writing. She's currently living in Calgary, Canada, with a husband and baby boy, and is working on her next novel called Dolls for My Daughter. And on today's episode of Author Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Veronica Trunzo. How are you doing, Veronica?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure to have you on the show today. I'm getting excited. We're going to be having a conversation around your work.
Mhm. Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely. So, Veronica, your book, like a lotus, follows through your personal experience, finding your purpose and joy amidst the things that life offers you. And I would like to start with the obvious question. Why did you decide to write a book about your life experience?
To the question. Well, it's kind of a long story on how I ended up there, but
Mm,
in 2013, I moved to Asia. I moved to Cambodia, actually, more specifically.
mm,
It was going to be just a year post university to, travel and get an internship at a hotel, and that ended up being 3.5. And that ended up being then moving up north a little bit. And
mm,
it was basically 5.5 years of
wow.
traveling, adventure, and living abroad. And since I've always loved books and always loved writing, the whole time I was traveling and experiencing life there, I was journaling and kind of recording all of my experiences and thoughts on where I was and the people I met and the cultures I experienced.
Mm,
And then when got home to Canada just for a little visit, I thought I should put all those journals together and write a travel memoir called Like a Lotus,
wow.
to kind of inspire others, especially other women, other young women, to try something exciting and daring and maybe even travel a little bit.
Wow, that's quite lovely to know, really. And I love how this came to be. And your short description actually you made for a fantastic and lovely discussion. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And I'd also like to ask you, for readers who haven't read the book yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we would expect in terms of themes picking up the book? And also, why did you move abroad in 2013, if you would love to talk about that?
Of course. Themes, well, the genre would be more of a travel memoir, but it's really
Okay.
light and fun. I tried to write in a way that the reader would feel like I was speaking directly to them, as if
Mm,
I was sharing some stories.
mm,
There's a little bit of love, there's a little bit of adventure. Sometimes it gets a bit serious and talks about the culture and some difficulties I had, some scary stories, obviously, as a
wow.
female traveling alone. But sometimes it's very light and fun as well. A lot of funny
Mm,
experiences and things like that. Mhm.
that's lovely. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that middle part. That's quite beautiful to know. Really made for a fun discussion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And
mentioning.
and then why, yeah, of course. And then why I moved. Well, I do explain it in chapter 1 of the book, of
Wow.
course. But basically I was in a kind of a end of the road in a lot of parts of my life. So a
Mm,
relationship ended. I was done university. I was trying to find a job, but had no idea what I wanted to do. I was
mm,
21, I think, at the time. So I was trying to figure things out, and I kind of had this amazing opportunity just fall into the palm of my hands to go to Cambodia to basically intern at a hotel as a manager. I thought it would be a really, really fun experience. Just go away
wow.
for a year, why not? And it basically opened up a million doors.
Wow. That's quite beautiful, really. And I love your reason of moving abroad 2013. Sounds like a fun discussion. Thank you for sharing. I love the sound of it. Before I move on to my next question, another one pop up in my head. I'd like to ask you, why did you decide to give the book the name like a lotus? Is there anything you have in mind, how you came about the title? And also, I don't know if you'd
Very
love
good
to talk
question.
about your cover because I found some nice design in it.
Yeah, lotuses are at the
Absolutely.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good question. Well, I do actually kind of connect that in the book a little bit, but basically, a lotus flower is a big symbol of Buddhism, and it's a very popular flower you see in Southeast Asia. It grows everywhere. And lotuses are, I think they're beautiful. And they
Wow.
actually grow through like marsh and mud. So they grow through like
Oh.
really damp, gross earth. And then they sprout into beautiful flowers. So in
Mm.
my head, they kind of describe going through something a little bit tough, maybe not so
Wow.
pleasant, and then becoming something really beautiful and amazing. So it kind of feels like it represents, life a little bit.
Absolutely. Wow, I love this. And
Hmm.
I agree with you. And that's one of the reasons why I think, every cover and every title, particularly, has a meaning attached to the book that the
Yeah.
author is specific about, And that's why we have title, name, design, because all of it, the diagram and the book cover, together with the title, has a message on itself to pass on, all still
Hmm.
part of creativity.
Hmm. Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. I love the sound of it. And now, please, let's talk about inspirations and ideas, which is one of the amazing things that always surprises me when I read books from writers, especially novelists like yourself. And I love to ask you because I'm always surprised about how someone would sit down and craft long sentences that makes paragraph, that makes pages, that makes chapters, and compile them together in a way that an eventual interesting novel and story come out of it. This always leave me thinking about how exactly did they got the inspiration and ideas to write all of these things. Now, Veronica, as far as writing is concerned, I would love to ask you too, how do you get your inspirations and ideas? Where did they come from?
Yes, well, first I had a really big inspiration from a few other books I've read. I actually read
Wow.
Eat, Pray, Love, which I think every
Wow.
girl did back in the day. When I think I was in Cambodia, and I thought it was really amazing. And I remember talking to a friend, like, "Wow, her stories are really cool. I feel like I have
Mm.
even more interesting ones." And then my
Wow.
friends were like, "Well, why don't you write a book then? She did. Why don't you?" So it kind of pushed me to try. Um, Very good points. And I actually, as I said earlier, I did write in a journal basically
Oh.
every single day about what I did and what I saw and how I felt about everything, the
Mm.
good and the bad. So it was a little bit easier to write because I had all of that material to work with.
Yeah.
So that helped a bit. But I did organize my book. It's actually, the chapters are actually based on the country I was in. So that
Oh.
helped me also kind of organize what stories would go in which chapters.
Interesting. I love the sound of it, really. Thank you for sharing. And I think it's a very nice thing to ask authors as to how they come about inspirational ideas. So thank you for sharing. Now, apart from like a Lotus, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on?
I actually do. Yes, thank you. I actually have a completed manuscript called Dolls for My Daughter, which is a very
Oh,
different subject matter. It's actually a historical fiction based on Europe during first the Nazi invasion in World War II, and then
wow.
later on the Russian invasion in the 60s in Czechoslovakia and most of Eastern Europe. My grandmother and actually my great grandmother is basically the protagonist in the novel, and my grandmother and my mother as they were refugees from Czech a few years ago,
Wow.
many years ago actually. And I kind of was inspired to write about them because Czech is such a small country. Not many people know much about its
Yeah.
history and the
Yes.
struggles that the people went through there. So I wanted to kind of write about different three generations of women and their experience in
Mm.
invasion in a very difficult place to live and moving to Canada as immigrants.
Wow. That's quite an amazing one, really. That's really an amazing one. And I love the incorporation of Czech in there.
Mhm.
Sounds quite beautiful. Thank you for mentioning. Now, Veronica, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Are there any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing this book and also ever since it got published?
Yes, it's a very, very difficult experience publishing. I actually think it was harder than writing itself.
Oh,
It was hard to figure out what road to go down, traditional, hybrid, or self-publishing.
yeah,
There's so many pros and cons with all of them. Of course, when you try to find agents and publishers, you get a lot of rejections, and that can really affect you negatively. So it's hard to keep going.
mm,
Um, Self-publishing has a whole other set of challenges. Trying to it takes a lot of work that I just didn't know how to do. I ended up going down the hybrid publishing route, so a little bit traditional, a little bit of my own,
yeah,
since I got to still own it myself and have all creative control and not
yeah,
have to do the hard work. So I went that way, but it was very hard to get there because there are so many pros and cons with both, and so many rejections that you have to just kind of move on from.
absolutely. Wow, this is so fun to hear you talk about. I love the sound of it. Thank you for mentioning. I love it. Now, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your book that we did not mention in this interview and I'd love the viewers to know? Is there anything?
But like Lotus, I don't think anything else that I would say without giving too much away, except that I do talk about a few countries and places that maybe aren't very well known
Okay.
by the average, North American or
Oh,
European who really hasn't been to Asia. So you get to learn a lot about, small countries and cities that you might not know a lot about. So it's kind
yeah.
of a fun book to, learn about different cultures as well.
Interesting. Sounds like a nice adventure into a new place, a new
Mhm.
people. Beautiful.
The goal.
Veronica, yeah, I would like you to read a short section of your book to the audience. But before that, I'd like to ask you, as a published author, what sort of advice do you offer other writers who are still struggling with writing and publishing in the genre of memoir, in the genre of nonfiction? Yeah, what would you advise
Yeah,
people in this category?
for sure. Well, I think this would be good advice for really any genre, actually.
Yeah.
But I would recommend storyboarding is something that I learned the
Wow.
second time around. Really helped me a lot. So you're not
Mm,
constantly going back and saying, wait, how did I describe that character? Or did I cover this yet? Or what was the season? So many things.
absolutely.
So a whiteboard or a little notebook where you can write timelines and
Yeah.
character descriptions is just absolutely necessary no matter the
Mm,
genre. Also, a writing tip is what I've learned as well. This is during my first one is just write the story first. Don't go back. Don't read the previous chapter. Don't read the page. Don't double check if it's written, well enough or whatever.
yeah.
Just write.
Mm,
That's your first edit. It's gonna be bad. It's not gonna be great. You're gonna miss things. You're gonna change a lot of it, but get it down first because once it's there, you can edit and it's so much more enjoyable to,
absolutely.
perfect it. But if you keep going back and, rereading the page or chapter previously, you're just always going to keep fixing it and you're never going to get it done.
Yeah. Wow. I love your tone of advice. It sounds quite
Yeah, it was
educative
helpful.
to me. Yeah, it's quite educative, informative, and what utilizing. So thank you so much. And I'm hopeful that viewers would love, to utilize it. So thank you. I really enjoy your advice. It's very
You're very
useful.
welcome.
Yeah, very useful. Now, would you like to read a short section of your book to the audience?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it could
Yes,
be your favorite, line, paragraph, or even your favorite page if you would love to.
of course. I ended at each chapter with a lesson I learned, basically based on the travel or the country or the experience. So
Oh,
I'll read one of
nice
those
one.
lessons. Okay, this was basically when I left Cambodia to move to China.
Wow.
All right. Well, I arrived in Cambodia as a young, innocent, heartbroken girl, all ready to take on anything life threw at her. I was lost, but so excited. I didn't know much. I was quite naive, but I was eager to learn, eager to experience, eager to try. I left Cambodia as a young woman. I learned more about the world and so much more about who I was. I learned how to be content alone and to trust myself. I embraced change. I grew a much thicker skin, and I felt more confident in my ability to explore and venture out into the unknown. I believe we as humans are in a constant state of transformation. Each new person we meet and each new experience we face alters us. It changes the way we think, react, and observe the world. Every single human on this planet sees the world a different way. We all hold a completely different perception of it. This is not something we can change, but embrace. My perception of
Mm,
the world changed and still changes today With each new encounter, each new adventure, and each new foreign land I walk my feet on.
Mm.
Comfort zones grow, self-assurance strengthens, and a new awareness of reality begins to develop. That
Wow.
is one thing about travel that is addicting to me. It changes you. I learned more about the world traveling than I ever did in school. I urge
Wow.
every person, any age, to travel. Venture as far and wide as you can. I promise you, you will come back a changed person.
Wow. This is amazing, really.
Thank you.
This is so
A quick
amazing.
lesson I learned.
Yeah, I love your recitation in there and everything you mentioned. This is really amazing. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah, that's quite lovely to know. And just in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview, I would love to get a copy of your book. On what platform is it available on for purchase?
Yes, well, Like a Lotus is available basically on any major bookstore website. So you can get it at Barnes& and Noble, Chapters Indigo, of course, Amazon, Waterstones, anything that
Wow.
basically any website that's a part of a big book chain. But
Yeah.
Amazon usually is the go-to for most people.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Veronica Trunzo's book directly on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, and also another website. So thank you so much, Veronica, for accepting the
Thank you very much.
invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome
Thank you for
having
this
this
opportunity.
conversation with you.
Yeah, this was really enjoyable. Thank you so much for this.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it too.